Hello, and welcome back to The Empowered Resilient Woman, a podcast that supports all who identify as women to become their most resilient self in life and in business and carve an easier path to sustainable success. I'm Kimberly Smith, your host, and I am being joined today by a very important guest. I am so excited to have with me Mary Kathryn LeMaster. She is a speaker. She is an advocate for the blind, a mother, an accessibility and mindfulness consultant, a legally blind visionary, and she is president of the nonprofit Eye See Hou, Houston's visually impaired and blind community and their families. So welcome to the show, Mary Kathryn. I'm so glad to have you here with me today. I know that you and I have been working towards this conversation for months.
We have. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I am so excited to have this conversation and open the door for so many of us, so many people. I'm excited. Thank you.
Yes. And, this particular topic really touches me close to my heart for, a big reason too. When you and I met Mary Kathryn, we were actually at one of my favorite places here in Houston, She Space. Shout out to the best co-working space ever. And I've met so many incredible people through that space and, just their community itself. And when you and I met, I just had this feeling. And then, I was really curious because I could tell that you were visually impaired. And I don't know, did I catch you off guard when I asked you specifically about your impairment?
Well, kind of, only because sometimes, I am a white cane user. And so people will often, if I'm speaking, they come up and ask me questions about my life. And every now and then someone will say, oh my gosh, my mom, my brother, someone in my family or my best friend has a visual impairment. And the way you were talking, I think you have the same thing. And every now and then I go, oh yeah. Because quite honestly, I don't see a lot of other people who are blind, who are cane users. That's really how I know if they are legally blind like myself. So when I hear someone say something or we make a connection, it does surprise me and it makes me so happy and so excited.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and for those who don't know, there's probably many listeners who do know this, but my mother is legally blind and she was diagnosed with the very same eye disease as you have, retinitis pigmentosa, or RP, when she was 26. And I know that it changed the trajectory of her life completely, right? Obviously, being her daughter, I've spent my lifetime too, supporting her as well. But I'm really eager to hear your story. Of course, when you confirmed that you two had RP, I was like, okay, I got to talk to you more. I got to learn more about what you're doing and your business. So, I guess let's just start at the beginning when you were diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa and kind of what that was like.
Yeah. So I was 13. It's a really heavy load to be diagnosed with an incurable degenerative eye disease at 13 and told that you would go blind by your 30s. It was really heavy. It was really heavy. It runs in my family. And what RP does is it actually leaves you with tunnel vision. So it slowly deteriorates your peripheral vision. So if you're looking straight ahead, you don't see down. If you're looking to the right, you don't see left. It's really tricky place to be because I can see, but I can't see. It's confusing. It's confusing to explain. It's confusing to live. But this is my life and this is the way things work. So at 13, oh man. Well, honestly, I didn't believe it because my vision was so good. Right. And now there was this thing that I was like having to wait for, or had to have fear around, or that really kind of stopped me in my tracks. But luckily, being a normal 13-year-old that was incredibly rebellious, and I was like, oh, this shit's not going to happen. No, we are not. This is not what we're doing. Thank you so much for the offer, but no.
Yeah.
We could do something else. You know, I had trouble at night. I did. I've always been night blind. I've never driven at night. But I went home, and my mom and my dad were they were crushed. They were absolutely crushed. Mm-hmm. And rightfully so. You know, it was a scare. The delivery from the physicians was scary. It often is. I definitely want to talk about that in this podcast. But there was a fire inside of me that I really haven't honored until now. But I just thought to myself, okay, all right, so let's just say this is actually going to happen. Let's just say this could happen one day. What am I going to do? I mean, I have to know that I physically can get through this. And I didn't realize that this was my spirit working through me at 13, that I, every night for a week, I think it was about 3 weeks, but I specifically remember the first week, I would rearrange my bedroom furniture and I would drink extra water prior to going to sleep. My parents wouldn't even know this story. But I would drink extra water to make sure that I had to go to the restroom. And it was an obstacle course so I could make it. And so in the beginning, I would move really slow, and I would have my arms out, and I would touch and feel along the way. Mm-hmm. And I made it every time I made it. But as the nights went on, I would move things around again. And then I said to myself, okay, you can't touch anything. It has to be through hearing. You have to make it. You have to make it there and back. Just try it. Just see if it's even possible. And it was incredible. Everything has vibration to it, right? Everything. I mean, this is scientifically proven. This is how we work, is through vibration. And you can hear, so a dresser drawer will take up more space than a chair. Wow. And so I started to hear, literally, my right ear would hear something different because the dresser drawer was taking up that space. So the right side of my body knew not to go right. And then to the left, I could hear, but I knew it was lower. And so my hearing really became even more of a sixth sense. It wasn't just audio. It was more than that. I could start to sense where things were.
I think that is a common question, that when you lose one sense, are the other ones enhanced? And it sounds like it wasn't necessarily enhanced. You just had to tap into it in a different way and train yourself to actually receive that information in a different way.
Yeah, because I get that question a lot. And every single person who is blind will tell you a different story, will tell you a different answer. My hearing is, my best friend calls me Whisper 2000 because she will say stuff in the other room of her house, and I always hear her.
And
now I don't
always
hear my husband. I don't know about that. I don't hear my roommates very well, but it is, I think the sense that really gets heightened is that intuition, is that sensing and knowing your space, where you feel empowered, where you don't, what needs to be cleared in that room. You know, I think that's a big part of it, because it got to the point where I literally just could feel my way through my room at night. And I knew after that I was going to be okay if I ever did actually go blind.
Yeah. So you were really preparing for this your whole life. when would you say that blindness arrived? And, what was your plan of action from that point on? How did that, I guess, change your vision for life? You're literally and figuratively, right?
Yeah,
in terms of looking forward.
it didn't really hit me literally until 3 years ago when I became legally blind. I never really had problems with my vision. It was me. So I knew how to figure out nighttime, and I had amazing friends that would help me kind of navigate rooms and places and things. But 3 years ago, I woke up and I had lost over 75% of my peripheral vision. And everything, my entire world became inaccessible overnight. And I didn't know what in the hell I was going to do. But I immediately went back to that 13-year-old self and that way of thinking of, okay, I'm going to figure it out and I'm just going to move really slow. I am so lucky to have my background as a meditation teacher and a yoga teacher, because the breath literally will help me every second of every day,
Oh, sure.
And
And having your vision, go away. That's so dysregulating, right? So yeah, your breath is is the best regulation tool in terms of, kind of getting your breath and grounding yourself and, taking down that stress level so that you can really think clearly. And what you just described there, right? Taking on that thought process that you were going to figure it out and you were going to go really slow, right?
Yeah.
You were already setting the stage for I'm going to need so much patience here. I'm going to be gentle with myself, right? That is the solution-driven mindset, right? That is confidence, actually. In its most pure state is not knowing everything, but willingly walking into the darkness, right? And embracing the unknown and knowing that you're going to be okay.
Yeah, hearing sometimes when I say that to people, it sounds like a great pillow quote. We're going to be okay. Because some days that are hard, you're like, shit.
Yep.
I literally don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. And then you start thinking about your life and the people around you and the people that you love, the people that love you, and that we're not here to give up.
Yeah.
But we also don't have, and especially as women and as mothers, that doesn't mean that when we decide we want to go forward, that we have to barrel and push into this bullshit hustle mentality. That is
for sure
the old way. The new way is us being so empowered in our body and our soul that we go forward with just such grounded power that it's aligned. It's just an alignment, and
it's faith. It's faith in yourself, and in that. Yes, it's not just us, right? We are freaking badass women who are capable of so much, right? We can do so much with our own efforts, and then there's this point where you just have to trust. And it's that point of surrender that, we've talked about quite a bit on the podcast. It'll continue to be a theme for sure, because you notice those moments where you're feeling tense, where you're feeling stuck, where you're feeling the self-doubt creeping in. And that's that just amplifies the fear, right? Or just gives it more power. And so yeah, it's really having that faith and trust and surrender and letting go a bit and taking that pressure off yourself to do so much all at once, right? Yes, go slow. Go as slow as you freaking need to.
You can't go higher if you're holding on to what's beneath you. There's not a long enough stretch for that to take, for you to do both, right? And for that to take place. And it really is this place of surrender, knowing that, you know what, we're going to figure it out. No matter what comes at us, we will figure it out. And so right after I lost my sight this 3 years ago, at the time, I also had cataracts and glaucoma. And I had bilateral cataract surgery that summer of 2020. Very interesting to be in and out of the hospital for tests.
I bet.
Yeah, that was really interesting to move through so much fear of my own, just for my own experience of blindness. And I'm losing, like I've lost it. I'm losing my sight. And then being around so many people in so much fear. And that was really hard. That was a really, really hard moment in my life. And I thought, okay, so how would I tell my clients to set up for a surgery? What do I give? What advice do I give? And you probably do this all the time. As a coach, we do this. We teach what we need the most, and then it comes in our own house, in our own life. And you're like,
absolutely.
Oh my God. And so I just thought, okay, I'm going to need meditations. But for the first time in my life, I didn't want to hear anyone else's voice. I wanted my voice. I wanted my guidance, because I know how slow I like the cadence to be. I knew what I needed. And we don't remember that we know that what we need until it's kind of past the mark. But we always, if we go slow enough, we always know what we need. And
absolutely. Yes. We're always looking outward for that obvious, like, saving grace. And it's really when we pause and yes, do what you say, right? Like, kind of go inward and ask the question, like, what do I need right now? What can I give to myself? How can I help myself? Those are empowering moments too, because you realize that you really do have a lot of resources and you really do have more control than you think over a lot of things.
You're so right. That's exactly what it felt like. It felt, when really big things come in through our lives and we fight them, we're angry at them, and then we ask, okay, what's here for me? And that was a moment that I was able to request my own voice, request my own inner vision, because I asked myself so many times over these 3 years of just, okay, no more looking out, like literally, it's coming back to you. It's always coming back to myself. Everybody's medicine is coming back to themselves.
Right. So with vision and blindness, but when we were preparing for this conversation, right, we talked about how so many people aren't aware of the really broad spectrum that vision and blindness falls on, and what it really means to be visually impaired. So what does that mean? Like, what does that look like in terms of stats? I mean, I don't know if you know something off the top of your head, just in terms of like people who experience just impairment in general, right? What is impairment?
Yeah. And what a big question, because it's in every single community, right? And what I love to tell people, so when it comes to being visually impaired, 1 in 4 people, I think that's a low. I think it's actually 1 in 2 or 1 in 3 people is visually impaired. So visually impaired literally just means there's an impairment to your vision. Okay. Right. Do you wear contacts? I do. Wear glasses?
I do.
So you're visually impaired. Mm-hmm. Nothing in your life has changed, but it kind of comes back to that mindfulness question of, what do I need? So if your eyes need a little help, awesome. You grab your contacts, you grab your glasses so that you can have access wherever you go. That's something that we do on our part. But then bigger scale is creating more accessibility. So we are all syncing up to be invited to the same table and to invite everybody to the table. And that's what, really I've been on such a mission in these 3 years. I've created my own accessibility and mindfulness consulting business. So I help businesses create more accessibility for the visually impaired and blind community. Part of that is educating people, the sighted community, because I didn't know, and there's so much to know. The first thing is that it is a spectrum. So even though I am legally blind, I can still see, and that's very confusing. That's why when I was diagnosed at 13, you're going to go blind. Well, what did we know? What have we always been told about any disability community? Your life is really going to be different, hard, difficult. You're going to be alone. All these awful things. Nothing was empowering for me.
Which it shouldn't be like that anyway. Because you're differently abled, there's no reason why you should have a less full life.
Right. Yeah. And that's a big part of it. And just how people also want to be addressed. I'm great saying that I'm blind. I wasn't for a long time. Mm-hmm. It's taken me some time to get there, and anytime you are diagnosed with anything, I feel like you leave the office with someone else's title for you. Mm-hmm. And it's our decision that we get to go back and get that part of ourselves and give ourselves our own title. So finding a way to empower ourselves with this new part of our life, which I have fiercely led myself through with being a white cane user now.
Right.
And I've named her. I have 2 of them. My white one her name is Sugar, and the yellow one. So I got both girls. Because it's a part of me now. It is.
Yeah.
She helps me get around everywhere I need to go. And honestly, my entire life, I always said, I will never, ever, ever use a cane. You will never find me with those ever in my whole entire life. But I never wanted or want my child to feel like he can't, that I am a burden to him. And I have had to suck up some real guts to do it.
Sure. And I understand that. I mean, my mom felt very similar, and, it was maybe the fear of, drawing attention to herself, right? Or, because there is this tabooness around disability. There's a tabooness around being blind. And I'll tell you, we're getting real frank here, right? That I have been appalled at the inconsiderate behavior that I have not only witnessed around my mother, right? When people do notice that she's visually impaired or blind. I mean, when she was first, now she has a guide dog, but when she was using her cane, it was like people wouldn't get out of the way. They wouldn't, they almost kind of, I don't know, there was this like uneasiness, but then also them just not like being mindful of maybe clearing a path even to make it even easier for her. Right. And it's just kind of shocking, right? Whether you see somebody who's disabled or not, right? Like, let's be helpful, right? Let's take that mindset of being helpful and assisting people. I just kind of remember this moment. This is unrelated, little story tangent, but like I was at lunch with for work one day. This was years ago. And somebody in the cafeteria, like the work cafeteria, dropped a plate and it smashed all over. Right. And like food was on the floor. Right. And I immediately like went down and like helped picking them up. Right. And it's like all these people around are just staring, not doing a fucking thing. Right. And just looking like, oh, how embarrassing. Right. And I thought, man, shame on you all. Right. Like, be better than that. Like as a community, we have to be better for people that have all types of abilities or disabilities. And it's about creating that positive experience for people no matter what. So, obviously you've taken something which was very hard on you initially to adjust to, and you've spun it into something very positive with this business of yours, which we're going to talk more about. But what was your own experience of not being able to access what you needed, right? Whether that was in real life or online or whatever it may be, were there moments where you were like, man, this should not be this difficult?
Oh my God. The levels, there's not enough time.
Yeah, I know. We could really be here forever, I'm sure, with all of the examples that you must have.
Time to tell you all of the places, all of the things. I want to back up just really fast about being the cane and people, my husband and my son, because luckily, I don't actually see all those people staring, but I can feel them.
Oh, I bet.
I can feel it. And on those days, I might be a little cheeky and and turn and look at them and give them a wink. I have a vision where I can fuck with people at this point. But it's been even harder for my friends and my loved ones to be with me, to see those things, because I can understand that's kind of where you've been coming from, is you see how everyone is reacting. And, a stat that I did not think about that changed everything for me is the minority community is the largest, the disability community is the largest minority community that every single one of us will be a part of in our life.
Wow. That is a big statistic. And that changes your mindset completely.
Everything into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big reason of, I have such a goal to make places more accessible. Yes, of course, for me and for my community, but for everybody, because you make it accessible for one community, then it opens the door for everybody else. Yeah. Our entire society is going to have to swallow egos, because it's not about the way we look. It's about how we treat ourselves and each other. This is it. If we're not seeing that enough in our society right now at this moment in our history, then we are asleep, and it is time to wake the fuck up.
Yep.
We need to be more aware of how to have a better society, a more loving society, and move the needle forward, because none of us even really want to be in this place where we're mean to each other and where we're not kind, where we're not helpful, where we're not a community. We've really lost that. And I will say, one of the reasons I've had such confidence through this whole thing is because of the other blind and visually impaired people I have met that have reminded me that, this isn't different. My life is not different. It is normal. This is a normal life. This is like everything's normal. It might look a little bit different to certain people, but then you get into the question of what's normal, what's not. We're not time for that. But so back to your original question of what do I do when something's not accessible? Was that your question? The level and layers of inaccessibility?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Back to when I was after I was healing from the bilateral cataract surgery, really didn't have much vision at all at that time. And I was looking for meditations. And then I realized so fast, well, one, I wanted my own. But when I was in that search, and I'm also coming from the yoga and meditation world, the wellness world, the industry, every image, every class time, every post was inaccessible. This was my very first avenue to see how inaccessible this market, this area is, because all of our images, while they are lovely, they're so lovely and light and airy, the context, the text, and all the information on top also is light and airy and script font. So everything blends into itself. I couldn't read anything. I could barely see what was in the images. And it wasn't until I followed another blind advocate that I learned about photo descriptions. That's what they're there for, to describe what's in the photo to a blind person so they can also understand what's happening in the photo, the post. So the first thing I did was I went into my website, I went into all of my things and learned how to make everything accessible for the visually impaired community. And also, when you open that up, then you open it up for the dyslexia community, for the elderly community, and for so many more, the neurodivergent community. When you have larger font, it's so easy to make things accessible. We've been told lies upon lies upon lies. It's not timely. It is not super costly. And when I work with businesses, that's probably their biggest thing that they walk away with. Their aha. They have no idea how easy it is to make it accessible, but they also don't know they have visually impaired students, clients, and customers. There's 4 billion people in the world with a visual impairment.
It's a lot. It's a lot of people. Yeah. And you're excluding a lot of people when, when people can't see them, when there's no contrast, when they're not big enough. Right. And it's, to be honest, it's something that I have not spent enough time thinking about. And even with my mother and her blindness, and she uses a computer, she is a whiz at the computer. I'll tell you, I'll call her and she's like making scones. She found a recipe online, she does not let her blindness kill her spirit. She has her down days for sure. But as far as using a computer, I think that that's something that most people out there in the community would not even think of or make that connection, because they subconsciously think that that is not a tool that a blind person uses at all, or that a blind person or a visually, we're not as mindful about that visual impairment spectrum. And you actually said that to me when we were talking, and I just want to bring this up so we can kind of riff on it a bit, but just when we were talking about this before, we talked about it really being about a future-minded entrepreneurship. So really kind of building in that thoughtfulness, creating accessibility in our business is a mindfulness practice, which I had never taken that perspective before, but I was so glad when you shared that, and obviously wanting to share it with our listeners here, because that is what this future in life, no matter what direction we're talking about, right? Whether it's, raising more compassionate children who become, better adults and better politicians. And, we know the whole domino effect that would have, right? Or being in our business and making these changes. it's all about mindfulness, right? Stress management, mindfulness, connection with your partner, mindfulness. So it only makes sense.
Yeah. And thank you for looping us back, because that when I realized that for a while, I thought, how does this work? How does my mindfulness practice and yoga and teaching meditation, how is this actually combined with this new side of my business as a consultant, as an accessibility consultant? I knew there was a way, but I wasn't sure. And I was literally in the middle of a presentation for a company, and I was leading them through, because in the beginning of my workshops, we always do a little bit of breathing to get us grounded, right? And then we have an experiential part where clients literally see through my eyes. And I had them walk around their rooms just to physically get a perspective of what it is like and what they need to change in their environment for someone who's visually impaired. But I was kind of watching them breathe and watching them walk around, how I had them move a little bit slower, which is what I used to do in my practice anyway, in my teachings. But I realized it's all mindfulness.
Yeah.
To be a thoughtful leader in your community, in your business, to be a thoughtful, powerful entrepreneur, you have to be mindful of what you're actually putting into the world. And when I talk to businesses and we're doing website audits, one of my first questions is, how many photos do you really need on your homepage? Because it comes back to that conversation of, I got to have it all. There's not enough time. There's not enough space. Everybody has to know everything about me all right now. And I'm like, oh shit, no, this is how this works. Great. No. Especially when I start asking them to describe their photos through alt text and photo descriptions for my community. And they go, oh yeah, I don't want a carousel. I'm like, I don't want it anymore. I just want one or two photos. Great, because those photos are powerful. They mean something. So it does. Accessibility comes back down to a mindfulness practice in your business. How do you want to move it forward? Who are you inviting to your business? What audiences have you forgotten about? Hopefully this conversation reminds you to open it up to everybody and not be scared. I think you and I talked about that also. And that's a big conversation in the DEI world and in the accessibility and the disability world for people who are not disabled. We're just been thrown so many things at us. I think everybody really is trying their best. I do believe that. I think we're all really overwhelmed and confused of what we need to do in so many aspects.
I think that's a great point. Yes.
Right now, we're just not doing anything.
Right.
And it comes back also to be ADA compliant on your website, in your physical space. Last year, the ADA really started to crack down on inaccessible websites. And people were getting fined. I mean, it's been a really big movement.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a really big movement. At the same time, we don't want people having to rush and make this compliant just to get it off their list and out of fear. I want it to be a mindful reason. Yeah. And I want it to be a powerful reason.
Yeah. And I think you're right. There are a lot of businesses and I think just people too, who, and it's, to speak to what you said, yes, I think everybody is overwhelmed because they're afraid of messing it up, right? And maybe looking silly or being embarrassed or hurting somebody. But instead of kind of coming to the table with, hey, I'm inexperienced with this, I really don't know, I'm feeling confused, right? It actually parades or masquerades as a resistance of, this isn't important enough for me to actually give my time, which I don't think is really what people mean, but it comes across that way as it's like, another thing, right? Like, we need, unisex bathrooms to appeal to, the non-binary gendered folks or whatever it might be. Right. And there's always going to be more that can be done, I think. But yeah, it's flipping that script a bit and realizing that it doesn't have to be hard, right? Like the things that you've mentioned are pretty simple changes to make such a big impact.
So simple and so easy. And remember, you're doing the best you can. I'm doing the best I can. I will do the best I can tomorrow. I'm going to try. We just put so much pressure on ourselves in so many different ways. But yeah, the things that I teach my clients, it comes back to mindfulness and simplicity. The more simple,
I love it.
Bold. Being simple is bold. It is. It means that you don't have all this rhetoric. It means that you are decisive. It means that you're aligned. It means that you are powerful and you know what your mission is.
Yeah, definitely. And when I think about simplicity too, I think about timelessness. I think about something being classic, right? Something that never goes out of style, something that appeals to everyone because it is so simple, but all encompassing too. So, I guess that's a great way to think about accessibility and maybe, yes, simplifying things on, your different collateral or your website or whatever it might be, is that like, number one, it takes the pressure off of you to be like super creative and come up with something that's like so wow, right? Like I think we all think we have to have this wow factor. And honestly, simplicity goes such a long way. And that's what makes things so much more accessible as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Let the wow be simple and just as bold as bigger. In my world, bigger is always better. Yeah. Larger, bigger fonts, bigger images, like all the things.
Yes, I love it. So I want to ask you specifically, Mary Kathryn, about resilience and resiliency, because of course, here on the Empowered Resilient Woman podcast, for me, it's just been a really big buzzword, right? For my own well-being, right? And it was something that I identified with my clients that, they were stressed, they were overwhelmed, there's a lot of factors to, wanting to be happy in life. Right. But I think the underlying thread for so many of us women and so many people is that we want to know that we can handle anything that comes our way. Right. And like you said, so many of us will be a part of the disabled community at some point in our life, right? And that might be a health diagnosis, that may be a visual impairment that comes up, right? So it can look different, but what does resilience mean to you? What does it mean to be resilient?
Honestly, it's been a big buzzword in my life for a long time. And I think we talked about this. I didn't even really connect to it until 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I didn't physically embody what that meant until I went through losing my sight. Mm-hmm. And knowing that I'm the most incredible and powerful and most resilient person I know.
Yeah.
And I think that every single one of us will have that moment in our lives where they will realize, holy shit, I am the most resilient person I know. I can do this. I can take one step at a time. I can be a part of what matters to me and grow from this. And then share it. Whatever I'm learning, I have to share. I think that's also part of the resilient piece, because I think when we don't have resilience, we keep things to ourselves because we're nervous about it. but it's brave. It's a very, very brave thing to do, to share your story, to share your learnings, your failures, whatever it is. All those things are part of your resilience,
Absolutely. And most people that I know, and I'm sure that and everybody listening, everybody that we've all been through a lot of shit, right? Like we've all been through it. Like there has been, I'm sure, a time in your life where you feel like you went to fucking hell and back, right? And you're stronger because of it, right? Doesn't mean it wasn't hard as hell, but you probably learned a lot. And I think that we forget to continue to give ourselves credit for these things that we've accomplished in our life. We're focused on the future, which is great. But we forget about everything that we've conquered in the past. And that is such an empowering practice or exercise to do, is actually to go back and think about all the things that you've accomplished in your life, the hurdles that you've jumped over, that you've crawled under, right? And
oh my God.
and right, I know. We've all had low points. We've all been down in the trenches, in the mud, like army crawling across, the landmines of the war zone. It's sure, that's life. But you have to give yourself that credit. I think that is one of the most empowering things that I have learned to do, is to, when I'm feeling that self-doubt, when I'm having a tough mental day, and just kind of thinking about that this place is temporary, right? It's honor those emotions, right? Like you said, you've had to honor all your emotions in this process of becoming and embracing being a blind woman, a proud blind woman, right? So that you can go on and teach and share and change your community for the better, right? But you have to, I think continually looking back and realizing and giving yourself credit for all that you're doing and the positive impact that it's having, that's when you really get to look in the mirror and say, damn, I am her, right? I am the person that I've always been dreaming of being. I am resilient. I can do this. We're going to figure it out.
And then tomorrow I might fall flat on my ass and I'm going to get up.
Right. Yeah. We might be in bed, like needing a mental health day, eating a box of chocolate. That's usually my go-to, is finding something sweet and, shoving it down my face.
I mean, listen, every day is different. And every single day is different. Speaking of going back and kind of looking at all the things that we've done, I look at how afraid I have been since I was 13. How much fear I've held in my body, waiting, like holding my breath to go blind. Like, is it going to happen now? Is it going to happen tomorrow? Is it going to happen next week? These things. And it's so beautiful having led to meditation and breath work to really just bust open the door on all of that. So my lungs literally could just relax and breathe.
Yeah.
And then 3 years ago, when I had this last diagnosis and became legally blind, I was like, well, fuck.
Yeah.
Wait, this is what I've been afraid of for this whole time.
And it's here.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
It's here and I'm okay. It's the diagnosis for so many. It's the delivery. This is why our practices of taking care of ourselves is so important.
Yeah.
The way we take care of ourselves, we teach our children how to take care of themselves and their bodies, because when big things happen, we can come back to our practices. We can come back to our breath and know that we can get through the next moment and the next moment. And then they can teach their friends and their peers. And, I finally was able to truly exhale when my ophthalmologist just said, well, as of today, you're legally blind.
Yeah.
I wanted to hit and also hugger.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yes. Not easy news to get, but you, like you said, you've been training for this your whole life, with being in yoga and meditation and the ability to learn how to regulate yourself, right? And you've been setting yourself from the beginning, like, wow, like I just have so much love for that 13-year-old girl who was like rearranging her bedroom and, testing herself even back then. Like you were determined as hell, girl. I mean, it's just incredible.
I didn't even know, when I was a massage therapist for years, and then I became a Reiki master. And I thought, my 13-year-old self started this whole thing back then. I really tucked her away for a long time. She came back out, luckily. But we all have that 13-year-old self in us. And they're saying, usually they're the loudest ones in us. They're telling us something. It's either rage. And if it's rage, it's something that we want to change in our lives. It's something that we are not okay with that status quo, right? We want bigger and we want it just to be, we want it better and easier for us. So one last thing I want to say about kind of going back. This is really kind of off topic, but it's also important. Usually on Monday mornings, maybe Tuesdays, we're all moving so fast in the mornings prior to school, drop off prior to work and all that. And we think, God, I've got so much to do. I haven't got anything done. Bullshit. You woke up, you took a shower, you got dressed, you got people in your house dressed, you fed animals, you fed all the people in your house. You've made coffee, you made all these things. We started the laundry, like all the things we just are on. So whenever you hear this podcast, just know that tomorrow morning you're going to do it and you're going to go, damn, look at all that. Look at all of that I just did. All right. Okay.
Which is also mindfulness, right? Like pausing to really see those things. And it takes being intentional, right? We are moving at a very fast pace, naturally too. I think that a lot of women just have that natural energy, right? Like I do consider myself a high energy person. I like to be busy, right? Like and not busy with stuff that I don't need to do, but I like to be productive. So, and running a household, there's no shortage of shit to do. So, there's always clothes to wash or something that I could quickly get done, right? And obviously making time for rest as well, equally these days, but slowing down, and I was telling myself that the other week, actually last week specifically, I was kind of recovering from a cold, and then I had like some weird thing on my hand. It's been a pain in the ass, frankly, but I'm not going to go into it, but in an injury, right? And here's the thing, if you've ever had an injury and honestly had your abilities hindered, right, for any period of time, right? We all know how frustrating that is, right? We hate being sick because we feel like we can't do anything, right? When you're injured, you feel like you can't, like, I've got this thing on my hand. I haven't been able to do yoga. I haven't been able to go to the gym like I can, right? And that to me is that accessibility factor, right? And like thinking about, gosh, there are people who feel like this every day because the way the world is built, it's not set up for them to have a good experience. And I just thank you, Mary Kathryn, for opening our eyes to this, and, really sharing some of these easy ways that, businesses and just anybody, right, who's involved in any type of community or anything, right? Like asking those questions. Am I leaving any community out? How can I make this more easier to look at, right? Bigger font, some descriptions of the pictures, right? Like these are important changes that we need to start making now. Yeah.
Yes. They're so simple. Can I give 2 tips just really fast?
Yes. Share away.
Please, y'all. This is so easy. Okay. For the love of my sight and your sight, everyone's vision, And if you're on Instagram and you're in stories, you don't have to tell us in a novel on one photo. Give it
Right.
3 to 4 photos. Make the font larger. So simple, so easy. And I love you for doing that. I love you so much. And it's good. You're gonna be very surprised, and you're gonna laugh. And you should send me an email about it, because so many of your friends are going to say, oh, this is amazing. I can read all of that.
And there's probably going to be higher engagement too, honestly, because even sighted people don't really want to read like some tiny little essay, right? So breaking it up. Yes.
Oh my God. I have spent hours with my magnifier trying to look at posts or stories, and then I just once a month I completely cull my whole account, and I just drop so many accounts. So many. They're not accessible. I'm done. I'm out. I don't even go on websites that are not accessible anymore. And when I go into businesses that are, I have a word with the manager. And that's it. Okay, so that number one, make your font and your stories larger. Really, really, really simple thing to do. If you own a business, please, in your bathroom, make sure there is a hook on the back of the door.
Yes.
I don't always have a purse with me, but I have my white cane. And if I have to hold my white cane up for it won't lean against something, then it falls on the floor. Floor is dirty and it's disgusting, and now I have to pick it back up with my hand, blah blah blah. Yeah, so simple. A hook, large print, and websites. This is my last one.
Love it.
Really need to work together, because I can tell these businesses are like, wait, what are all these, what are things? But if you have a physical space, please put an image of the front of your building up on your website on the contact page.
Yeah.
We have to know what we're walking into. I need to know if there are steps, if there's a ramp. What do you have so that it's easy for us to get into your building? You don't have to build a ramp. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, where are you? Let me know what I am going to walk into. Are there steps? What would I know? Because when I get out of my Uber, I can't always see if there are 7 steps, or if there's 1 step, or if there is a guardrail, or whatever. If am I going to be on gravel? Just let us know. And again, your website is the very first place your clients or customers will interface with accessibility or not.
Yes.
And they'll know what kind of business it is. So
very true.
That's it.
Well, and the good news is I'm going to put all your contact information in the show notes. So if you have specific questions, if you want to get in touch with, Mary Kathryn for a speaking engagement, for consulting, for accessibility consulting, seriously, reach out, because she's your woman. She's 100% your woman. So before we wrap up, we are going to do our little lightning round. And I'm curious, what do you love about being a woman?
Oh, God. So many things. Number one, that we're innovative. We're like sexy, creative. We're constantly in the flow. That in the flow doesn't mean that we are, in the flow. We're always aligned. That's my favorite part about being a woman, and that we are always in sync with nature and the phases of nature.
Oh, so true. My goodness. Spoke right to my heart, girl. I'm a fool for that moon and all the astrology. Yes. What about patience, humility, and surrender? What's the hardest one for you?
Oh, man. Or woman, I should say. Let me think here. Patience and surrender are equally as hard. They're hard as fuck.
Yeah.
It's really hard to let
sure.
go. And it's really hard to go just to have trust, right?
Yeah.
Like they're really hard. But it's kind of like when I first started using a cane, I spoke earlier about I was kicking and screaming. My husband said, I really think you should think about it. I'm like, no, I fucking don't. I'm fine. I can figure it out. And then we went somewhere and I thought, no, I want to go to the bathroom by myself. I don't have to ask my son or my husband how many steps to the bathroom, how many steps to go into the building, blah, blah. I want to get up and trust myself enough with the cane to independently move throughout and glide through the spaces that I'm in. So on the other side, I realized on the other side of my fear was my independence and freedom. That surrender she's a real, she will get you. She'll grab a hold of you. It's like the breath. Like I always tell people, when you do breath work, you think, oh yeah, I'm going to do breath work. I'm going to go to a breath work class. I mean, me, I'm already breathing. Bitch, you're about to get your whole life handed to you.
Right. I breathe every day. What are you talking about? I need to do breath work. Right. I know.
It will take you where you need to go, not always where you want to go.
Oh, and that's the humility factor. And I think, that's one that I think patience and surrender, obviously, like hands down, I feel everybody who's come on this show who I've asked that question to, those are the two that they usually talk about. And humility is something that like, I don't think we don't really talk about enough. Right. And that is the ability to humble yourself, right? To put the ego aside and your pride aside and be like, you know what? I do have to learn something new. I do have to be open to another perspective or another solution, right? Because it is our pride and our ego that often keeps us from the best solution, right? Or gaining the confidence that we need to go do what we need to do to get to the other side of fear. And I loved what you said about on the other side of your fear was freedom, which is always the case in my experience as well, is that no matter what you're fucking afraid of, what you want the most, it's on the other side of doing the damn thing. So we got to figure it out.
Oh, we got to figure it out.
We got to figure it out.
We can do it. We got it, and I have just one thing about freedom really fast. So I lead once a month. Once a month, I lead something on Zoom. It's called Name Your Cane Happy Hour.
I love it.
It's for white cane users all over the world. We meet once a month and we talk about our experiences with the cane, the good, the bad, the highs, lows. But two of the women this past week actually both named their canes Freedom, because that's what they give them is freedom.
I love it.
One is in German and one is in English. And so great. Just this opening to freedom. It's on the other side of our fear. We got it. Yeah. We've got it. We're not alone. That's the most amazing thing.
Awesome. Well, what are you reading these days? We'll make that our final question for today is what are you reading? What are you watching? What's something that you're loving right now? It could be anything that you want to share.
Well, I'm reading an incredible book. I'm going to forget the title, but it's an Archangel book.
Oh,
and I have not worked with Archangels in years, but it's been incredible. The woman the author, she also had some health things come up early on in her life where she found her gifts and she started working with archangels. And so it's been a book it's been divinely timed. I will say that. I'll send you the title. and the
Yes,
author.
please do. We'll put that in the show notes as well, for sure. And thank you so much again, Mary Kathryn, for being here. You're such a delight. You're such a warm, woman. And every time I see you, I just want to hug you. So I can't wait till we can see each other in person again. And I can give you a good squeeze. But you no doubt shared a lot of wisdom here.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. Thank you for doing your own work to be able to open the door for women to speak their own story. So thank you for your work as well.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's my pleasure. And, thank you all again for listening. We appreciate you so much. And if you enjoyed this episode, or if you think that there's somebody that could really benefit from this message, from hearing it, please take a screenshot, share it to your social media. You can tag me at kimberly.brook.smith. I'd love to respond and repost and say thank you. Just know that we appreciate you and keep shining. We will see you next time. And thanks so much for being here. So long.